big issue right now, violence prevention, school safety. And it seems like Republicans and Democrats agree on many things in this space: mental health, funding for school security, and there's no agreement on guns, as far as I can tell. So how do you find some compromise here, folks? You're talking a big game.
Yeah. Rock, paper, scissors.
I'll take that one. So when it comes to school safety, I'll revert back to kind of what I said before. I approach things to solve problems. I'm not out here to do political grandstanding. I do very little of that. That's not what I'm about. And I would never use a human tragedy to score partisan political points. I try to be careful to not do that. And so I haven't been super vocal on this issue. But I would bring it back to what I said about the bipartisan legislative process and how you can get a true, good bipartisan bill that actually solves problems, and what that takes and what has to go into that to make that product. And so when you're talking about a special session, as we are right now, special sessions are good for certain things. They're good for when you run out of time in budget negotiations and you need a little bit more time, but you've been doing that work all along. You need a little more time to tie up the loose ends. That's been done lots of times in this state. Or if you have like a natural disaster and you have broad consensus within the legislature and it's a time-sensitive situation, you bring us in and we vote on that, get the funds where they need to go, and that makes a lot of sense for a special session too. But with this issue, it's a little bit different. Yes, there is a urgency to school safety. There's no question about that. But is there the consensus? So what I would like to see, if we are going to be talking about a special session, is to move on the things that do have broad consensus and that will make an immediate impact. Okay? Don't hold those things up because you can't get immediate consensus on a hotly contested issue that goes back decades, that's been intractable for decades. You don't hold up the bipartisan consensus issues that can make an immediate impact for that because you want to make a political statement in a special session. That's not what the special sessions are for. So one example could be safe school funding, extending that to non-public schools. I think there's broad consensus on that issue, and it could make an immediate impact, and that would be a good use of a special session. You have an existing program. It's a dollar amount that needs to go to an existing program to add the non-public schools to it. That's something that seems to me that could be ripe for a special session. My hope is that we wouldn't choose to not do that because it must be packaged with a hotly contested issue that will take time if we are going to find a long-term bipartisan solution to that. It's going to take a normal legislative process. And I'll even give you one more example. I favor an SRO in every single school building in this state. But even that's probably not ripe for a special session because while we could come up with the funding for that in a special session, there isn't necessarily the law enforcement personnel to fit all of those positions. And so we're going to have to take a broad look at that in terms of licensing issues, in terms of recruiting issues, in terms of encouraging retired law enforcement. And there's a lot of issues. Law enforcement would absolutely need to be at the table. Other interest groups would need to be at the table. And you need the regular legislative process to come up with a successful bipartisan solution on that issue. So even an issue on that I agree with, not ripe for a special session, absolutely appropriate for a regular session. And I look forward to being a part of bipartisan talks on all of these issues when we resume back in February.